Hey, welcome back everyone to Love Wins, where the truth matters because it's the truth that sets us free. I just want to let you know off the top, I'm not going to enjoy this one. I'm only doing it because it's necessary, and I want to say right off the top that there is no human being ever born who isn't guilty of what we're going to talk about today to one degree or another. So what I want to talk about is corrupt religion. And often when religion is talked about as corrupt, we go back to the Dark Ages and the Catholic Church. I'm going further back. And I'm purposely going further back because I want you to see that the issues, you can change the name on the building, you can change the name of the movement, you can change whatever you want. Human nature is human nature. So I told you last video that I was going to take you back, and as we continue this series on fear, I want to take you back to the time of Jesus, and I want to show you what the church was like at that time. So, I'm going to make a bold statement. Herod the Great was a ruthless, heartless, despicable human being who ruled the area that the Jews lived in at the time of Jesus. He was the one who passed the decree that all the babies 2 years old and under should be killed. He was so messed up that when he knew he was soon to die, he had people slaughtered throughout his realm because he wanted people to be grieving when he died, and he knew they wouldn't be grieving for him, so he gave them other reasons to grieve. Here's my bold statement. The church at the time of Jesus, their policies, the way they treated people, they had far more in common with Herod than they did with Jesus. And they rose up against Jesus, but they never rose up against Herod. So, here are some things that the church taught, believed, spread at the time of Jesus. They believed and taught that if you were poor or sick or had anything else wrong with you, that you were being cursed by God because you were a bad person. So this belief is what prompted the disciples one day to look at a man who was born blind and ask the question, Jesus, was it because of something he did or something his parents did that he was born blind? Because it didn't make sense. Like, how could you be born cursed when you haven't had a chance to do anything to deserve to be cursed yet? Let me just say this as a general principle, aside from this video. If your beliefs about God come up against some scenario where they don't make sense, you need to reevaluate your beliefs about God. So disciples were born and raised in the Jewish nation, so they believed the common beliefs of the day, and one of those bedrock beliefs was God would curse you in some form or many forms if you were a bad person. Inversely, if you were wealthy, healthy, successful, God was blessing you because you were a good person. Imagine what that would do in the psyche of a young girl who got abused by a wealthy, healthy, religious person. God hates me and God's cursing me for this happening to me because I must be a terrible person. But there can't be anything really wrong with what he did because look at him, he's wealthy and healthy and successful. God is blessing him, God is happy with him. Therefore, God's happy with what he did to me. See how messed up that is? So those two, wealthy, healthy, God's happy with you. Unhealthy, cursed, poor, God's not happy with you. Another teaching that developed during the time of Jesus, but the principle had already existed previously. Anyone who gave Jesus any heed, followed him, believed in him, even thought about believing in him, there came a point in Jesus' ministry where the church decided if you continue on this Jesus nonsense, you're out. And by out, I don't just mean you can't come to church on Saturday, Sabbath anymore. I mean, you're out. Like, you are cut off. So I knew this town once Well, I still know about the town. I still know about the church, but I'm not going to name the church or the town. Town has about 1,200 to 1,500 people, and there's a church in that little community that has over 600 people in it. So that church dominates and controls the town. And if you belong to the church and then you leave, like if you have a business, nobody will buy anything from you anymore. They won't use your services anymore. Like you're either in or you're out. And the reason why religions do this, and they were doing it in Jesus' day, is because it's a method of control. And when people realize they should be out, they're afraid to leave. Which brings us back to this whole fear motif. What kind of God is he if I'm unhealthy, poor, I don't know what I've done wrong, I'm not aware that I've done anything wrong? What kind of God does that? And you're afraid to make any kind of a mistake because who knows what will happen next. And you're afraid to leave because if you leave, you've been taught that you leave, you're out, you're done. And there are many religions today, I shouldn't say many, but there are a significant number of them today who still, you're out, you're done. We won't talk to you, we'll have nothing to do with you. Where do you find that model, that behavior in the person of Jesus? Which is why I've been saying from the beginning and will continue to say, I don't want you to read Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John to be religious, or because it's the right thing to do, or because it earns you anything. I want you to read Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. I want you to know the kind of person Jesus actually is. Because Jesus said, if you've seen me, you've seen God. So don't let the church tell you, don't let tradition tell you, don't let anyone tell you what he's like. Find out for yourself. You will know the truth, and the truth will make you free. So, healthy, wealthy, God's good with you. Sick, poor, God's not good with you. You've done something. And if you follow this Jesus person at the time of Jesus, you're out. Or in today, if you do anything the church says you shouldn't do, don't want you to do, you're out. Here's another one. At the time of Jesus, murder was acceptable for the cause of God. Which is why Jesus told his disciples, the day will come where they will kill you and believe they are doing God a favor. And the reason they killed Jesus was because they believed they were doing God a favor. And the Apostle Paul, who wrote many of the New Testament letters and books, he, at one point, before he became a Christian, was running around hunting Christians and killing them, thinking he was doing God a favor. So they had this belief in Jesus' day that it was the role of the church to keep the world pure and to root out and destroy anybody who was going to taint the church. Here's another one. Prejudice, racism, men above women, any kind of othering, really, was not just accepted by the church. It was taught and promoted by the church. That we, especially the men in the church, we are the holy ones. And if you're not Jewish, you're out. They called the Samaritans, if you know the history of the Samaritans, there was a point when the tribes of Israel split. 10 stayed in the north and 2 in the south, and they became basically 2 different countries. And the 10 northern tribes ended up being taken over by the Assyrians, and the Assyrians ran a program where they essentially purposely moved some of the Israelites out and moved Assyrians in and mixed them up and married them together. And so the Jews in the south started referring to these Samaritans, which is what they became known as half-breeds. And they hated them. And it was okay to hate them. It wasn't just okay to hate them. It was right to hate them. It was your duty to hate them. When religion gets to the place where hating others, thinking less than others, of others, othering people, classifying people, when the church is actively promoting these ideas, something is seriously wrong. Jesus said, if you come to me, I will never cast you away. Jesus purposely crossed borders, talked to women, healed the sick from other places. Like Jesus' life was a class 101. That there are no borders, there are no classes, there are no hierarchies of people. We're all his children. All right, so let's go through the list again. If you're wealthy, healthy, successful, God's pleased with you, you're a good guy. If you're poor, sick, or cursed in any other way, God is not happy with you and you deserve it and you've done something to warrant this. Number 2, giving Jesus, at that point in history, if you started giving Jesus any heed, any creed, anything, the church said, you're out. Either you're with us or you're with him. There's no in between. And out didn't just mean you can't come to church. It meant you're out. Society, shunned, done. Murder for the cause of God was completely acceptable. In fact, it was your duty. That's why Jesus told the disciples, the day will come when they will kill you and believe they are doing God a favor. They actually brought themselves to the place where they believed that it was a good thing to kill people for the cause of God. Prejudice, racism, male chauvinism, othering of all kinds and all sorts was not just tolerated by the church, it was taught by the church, encouraged by the church. It's the way to live. When you put all of that together, the church of Jesus' day had far more in common with Herod the Great than they did with Jesus. And they turned on Jesus, but they never turned on Herod. And that's why Jesus said to the Jews one day, John chapter 8, you are of your father the devil, because you love what he loves and you do what he does. Why am I telling you this? If you really want to be free from fear, you need to know the truth about who Jesus is and what he's like. Because if you don't know the truth about who he is and what he's like, people will be able to manipulate you. And you might leave the church building, but you'll still be tormented by the things they've taught you. You can never be free of those things until you know the truth. I am not here to say that all religion is bad, but I am here to say that if you were Satan, where would you spend your most of your effort? If there really is a controversy between God and Satan, between good and evil, and you were the devil, where would you spend your time and effort? Over and over through history, the condition of the church that claims to believe in, the churches that claim to believe in God, have gone through these roller coasters through history of sometimes we're better than others. Sometimes we're far worse than others. I believe that we are headed for another period of time where the church is going to rise up and attempt to control society through politics and whatever other means they can get a hold of. If you want to be free, if you want to have peace, if you want the fear of what may happen to you in the future, how God sees you, all the fears that religion tries to use to control, to manipulate. If you want to be free of that, you need to know who Jesus is. And I'm not asking you to follow me. I'm not asking you to believe me. I'm not asking you for money. I'm not doing this for money. I'm not gaining anything from this other than I care about people and I want people to know the truth, because the truth does set us free. We'll see you next time.